And we're live. Hello and welcome to the Football Podcast for Wednesday, 13th of January. I'm joined as always by a certain Adam Galau to discuss the hottest stories surrounding the footballing world.
Hello, Theo. It is a pleasure to be here, as always. And without further ado, let us commence this podcast.
Indeed, in today's edition of the Football Podcast, we will be covering some hot topics regarding some managers and teams and some transfers now that it's the January transfer window.
But before we continue, if you're enjoying our content, we would really appreciate a like, subscribe, and if you could turn on the notification bell, it would be great as it encourages to keep posting on a regular basis. But on to the transfers, and Mbappe to Real Madrid, the ongoing saga is back again. Could it finally happen? I don't think that Real Madrid are trying to get it this window, but next window potentially, if they save up enough money, they could carry it out. They want to sell Bale or have it as part of the deal, potentially a swap Bale for Mbappe, along with a substantial fee, obviously, but it should help ease the load. Let's see. One fast winger for another fast winger. What do you think, Theo?
So we have Real Madrid, who have been constantly monitoring the French forward, who really just has really become one of the best players in the world ever since making the very expensive move from Monaco to PSG permanently. Real Madrid, they're looking to sell Gareth Bale on permanent to Spurs, along with Dani Ceballos on permanent to Arsenal, who I'll remind you actually never signed a permanent deal with Arsenal. The only hype around him was actually because he renewed his loan contract with the Gunners. But Arsenal are looking to make that permanent, and those two transfers, along with Real Madrid's hefty transfer budget already, should put them in their driving seat when it comes to the negotiating table with PSG, especially because Liverpool are also consistently interested in Mbappe. So those two selling of players there could definitely put them in the driving seat on the negotiating table. So yeah, that'd be a really two big transfers.
You were saying about Liverpool, they are right behind Real Madrid because they are also thinking of a potential. They are also thinking of selling Mohamed Salah, who has now, it's his fourth season at the club, I believe. He's become a Liverpool legend in his time. I think he's scored many goals. He's been one of the first to many goal landmarks, the 50-goal, 100-goal, and he's racked up a fair few appearances in his time. And they're thinking of selling him for a considerable fee of the 150 million region to Real Madrid, and Real Madrid are very interested. So I think it could be a kind of three-way deal that could be going on, but we can only wait and see. That takes us on to Diego Costa, who is still a free agent. What do you think?
A player of his talent doesn't really deserve that title. He was a world-class striker at Chelsea. The Blues never really have had quite a striker of his caliber ever since his departure to Atletico Madrid. And now he's a free agent because of players like João Felix, who are really coming to their own, following their big money moves. Really doesn't deserve that, but there is some interest from Premier League clubs, such as Wolves and West Ham. Wolves, I don't really understand, maybe a possible long-term I can't say long-term replacement. Diego Costa is I don't know his exact age, but he's definitely over 30. Raul Jimenez has been consistently linked with other moves elsewhere, so that wouldn't really make sense as a long-term replacement, but he could give a lot of quality to Wolves' side also be a great mentor for Fabio Silva. I think that's the name, right, Adam? Is it Fabio Silva, the
Correct,
teenager?
correct.
Yeah, Fabio Silva, who looks really promising. So, yeah, Diego Costa could be a great mentor for that player.
Yeah. So, Diego Costa is 32 years of age.
Yeah.
At the moment, so there is rumors of him and Raul Jimenez actually being a strike partnership as opposed to him being a long-term replacement.
That's very interesting. That would make Wolves' formation. That's very interesting, Adam. Thanks for that, because that either mean they'd have to go for because I know Wolves are very stubborn with their three at the back. Because Adam, do Wolves play a five at the back? Do they play with Do they play with wing backs, or do they play with Adama Traore and such as left mids and right mids?
I believe that it's a 3-5-2 formation that they normally play. Historically, they played a 5-3-2, but they moved Adama Traore and his left midfielder partner into a more advanced position, I believe, so that they could have more effect on the attack.
Right. Okay. So that's interesting, because that would significantly cut Fabio Silva's game time. But obviously, as Diego Costa ages, his fitness levels and footballing capabilities will also drop. But his experience could really help Fabio Silva. So yeah, that's what I'm really getting at here with Diego Costa potentially going to Wolves. With West Ham, I think West Ham are in dire need of a striker. With Sebastian Haller really struggling to really leave a mark in the Hammers side. So yeah, that's all from me on that subject, on that matter. Adam, take us on to the next.
Well, as a Militao, the promising coach, he's fullback and centre-back. Actually, sorry, Brazilian. He was playing at a Portuguese club, Porto. Is linked to Spurs. There have been issues around Davinson Sanchez. He could be on his way out, I believe, and he could be a good long-term replacement. Of course, the language barrier would be less, as he would be alongside Mourinho and Lucas Moura, along with some obvious others. And yeah, I think he's a very promising, no-nonsense defender, versatile, quick, strong in the air. I think this could really benefit Spurs and put them and make them into a more title contending team than they already are. And they could really be pushing for the title at this point.
Yeah, I think Spurs need a long-term centre-back to fill the void of Jan Vertonghen. Don't think... I can't quite recall the first name, but I think it's Juan Foyt, I think, the Argentine centre-back. Yeah, I don't think he has what it takes, really. I think he had his chance... seemed like a bit of an erratic player, showed a lot of resemblance to Serge Aurier. And I'm not really a big fan of Serge Aurier. And his style of play, how aggressive he is in the box. So, yeah, I think Eder Militao would be a good player to go to a team like Tottenham, who are in need of a solid defense, because their attack has absolutely... I think they've got one of the best attacks in the world, to be quite honest, with Harry Kane and Son, and Gareth Bale obviously hasn't quite left his mark on the team yet, to suggest that he could be staying on a permanent move, as we've said earlier, but they've been all doing well. So I think the defense would really make Tottenham a very complete team. They just need someone in front of Lloris. As far as it goes for Eder Militao, was a really promising player for Porto, and moved to Los Blancos, and yeah, that was very interesting how he hasn't really left his mark there, but I think Spurs team that's really looking good, and I think moving into a team with such good positive energy about them and such good form, I think would really be a big benefit to him.
Indeed. Well, I think we're done on Militao, but we will remain with players that could be leaving from the La Liga to the Premier League, with Messi potentially going to Man City, reuniting with Pep Guardiola in a swap deal for Sergio Aguero. He has been injured for the start of the season, is getting eased back into the side by Pep Guardiola. I'm sure that would be a transfer fee because Messi is on a different caliber to, frankly, anyone else on the planet. The way he can affect games, he is very unhappy at the moment at Barcelona, and I would not call this an unreasonable deal, especially with the incentive of reuniting with Pep Guardiola, the manager that he became the best player in the world with, and was the key player in the Barcelona side that famously beat Man United 3-1 in the Champions League final. They were toying with them, and he was the main man. He was the star player in the show, and so I think it's a very possible move for Lionel Messi. What do you think, Theo?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. We were covering this in the summer. Didn't quite happen. I think Adam, you know more about Barcelona than me. Did because Bartomeu resigned, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Did Victor Font take over?
I think so. Let me just check.
Yeah, it's interesting because if Victor Font did, then I think that'd play a major role in Messi staying because.
So it was Carlos Tusquets who took over from Bartomeu.
Okay.
But he is definitely more popular. Barcelona fans and even just rival fans. I don't think anyone, frankly, in the footballing world, by the end of Bartomeu's, I guess, dictatorship, if you will, if you could call it that, I don't think anyone wanted him to stay at Barcelona.
Yeah.
Including neutrals, and yeah, I'm sure if you ask some even Real Madrid fans, they probably did not want to. For the sake of football, Bartomeu stayed, and well, he left and was duly replaced. But yeah, you were saying, Theo?
Yeah, I was about to say if Victor Font was the club president, I think that would play a big role. Whether Messi would choose to leave the club that nurtured him as a young player. And now he's a very old player, still showing that same quality that we saw all those years ago. Though we have seen just slight signs that Messi is, not quite the same player that he once was. Barcelona's form, as far as I am sure, is not as good as it should be. Ronald Koeman hasn't done the best of jobs so far. Right, Adam? Because Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid seem to be doing a lot better at this point, right? In La Liga.
Yeah, correct. Barcelona, a third in the league.
Right.
Lagging considerably behind Atletico Madrid. Atleti have played 16 games, 2 less than Barcelona, and are a whopping 7 points ahead of them.
Wow.
Meaning that if they do win their next 2 games, that they will be 13 points ahead of Barcelona, because they currently have 2 games in hand, and their next 2 fixtures, they're not too challenging. We are playing Eibar on the 21st of January, and Valencia on the 24th of January.
Yeah.
And seeing their historical performances, I think they can win both, and they can really be in the driver's seat of La Liga. But Also, Real Madrid, who are by no means having a stellar season, are also ahead of them. Beat them in an El Clasico earlier this season. I mean, Barcelona are really not looking to be in a good position right now.
Yeah, and that decline in form may play a role in whether Messi would depart. And we haven't even talked about Aguero. There's evidence as well, similar to Messi, that his quality, I mean, is ever present, but not quite the same as it used to be. In those amazing games where he used to get a hat trick every game in that period when Man City won the title, twice back-to-back Premier League titles, and then obviously the injuries are beginning to catch up with him, which, I mean, we would expect as he is aging. So it's an interesting trade. I don't really understand why they would do that. I don't really understand why Barcelona would want Aguero. It's a long shot, I'll say that, of it actually happening. But as long as it's a rumor, as long as the rumor, as I've said before, as long as it remains being a rumor, the likelihood of it continues to grow, like we saw with Kai Havertz. That went on for about 3 months, and it eventually went through. So you never know. It is a short month, so things have to move forward pretty quickly. But we'll see what happens there. Moving on to our final transfer, we are gonna get to Chelsea here. Obviously, the defense is getting better. There's evidence of that with Thiago Silva's arrival. Fewer clean sheets now that Mendy is settled in. Maybe a bit of arrogance. As when they were table topping in November, they were really doing well, and then December hit them very, very hard, and January hasn't started very well either. They did get a win at Morecambe, and I was actually telling my family earlier that I didn't think I'd ever have to say this as a Chelsea fan, but we really needed a game against a League 2 side.
Wow.
So, and we won that game unconvincingly, in my opinion, even though it was 4-0. But onto the transfer itself. Upamecano to Chelsea. The head of RB Leipzig, not the coach, has talked up the chances of Upamecano leaving this summer, and Chelsea seem to be front runners. Adam, tell us about the likelihood of this happening in the summer, or even this month.
Well, I think that this month, considering I recall the time we were banding around in the summer months for Chelsea was splashing the cash very heavily. Huge signings, respectively, Timo Werner and Kai Havertz. And then they went on to sign Edouard Mendy as well. So I honestly think that they broke the bank in the summer, hoping that they would not need to sign anyone else. Thiago Silva also came in. I think that realistically, I don't actually think they have the financial capabilities to pull off this deal, because right now I'm just gonna check, but I think Upamecano's worth is very high. I think it's at least 80 million. I'm going to check.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Chelsea pull it off before, but after splashing a lot of cash, do they have more of it?
Yeah.
But I would, one thing I've learned is I would never doubt a Russian.
Yeah, exactly.
No matter how sketchy that money is. Well, that is very interesting. Upamecano shows lots of evidence of being a very good player, potential long-term partner to Kurt Zouma. And I think Thiago Silva has already left his mark at the club, and he's left, well, not necessarily in the club, he's left his mark on Kurt Zouma. Adam, don't you agree? We've seen a lot of improvements in players like Kurt Zouma.
Yeah, there seems to be more maturity and confidence, there just seems to be more comfort on the ball. You can really tell
Yeah.
Even in situations where you have many players running, he'll be able to stay calm, force them wide to the byline. I mean, you. I feel like you can probably see similar attributes in Van Dijk. I
Yeah.
mean, prior to his injury, but you can see similar attributes, and he's cementing them into his teammates. And it's quite impressive. You see Kotsuma making these challenges that a season ago he would probably miss time and get sent off. He's making these crunching challenges and coming out clean and with the ball. So it's quite impressive, frankly.
Yeah. I'm one who's really looking forward to what Kurt Zuma looks like at the end of the year. I mean, Thiago Silva looks like he could be staying at the club for another year, as he's got an option to extend his 1 year contract. So, Kurt Zuma looks really good, and if Kurt Zuma looks really good, then we already know Upamecano looks like a really class player. Hopefully, if he goes to Chelsea, he won't be another Bundesliga flop. Unfortunately, that seems to be the case at the moment with Havertz and Werner. But they're also long-term options. They'll improve over time. Get used to the Premier League. So we'll see what happens with them as well. And we're moving on to our hot topics now. And here's what we have for you. We've got 2 hot topics today. And we have the first, which we're going to discuss now, is about Frank Lampard, sticking with Chelsea. We've got it written down here. Frank Lampard, question mark.
Yeah. So, well, I think Frank Lampard, his tactics, he's got the right concepts, but I just think that, yes, he was a championship manager, but I think the leap he made to the Premier League, you can't get away with the same things that you can get away with in the championship, and I think he's really recognizing that now. It's just a few tactical nuances. I mean, he's had some games where he's got it spot on, flawless. The counter press, the third man runs, flawless. But there are too many games where it's off color for him. And I honestly think that the leap was too big. Yes, it's his boyhood club. He's a legend at Chelsea. It was the obvious choice. A club legend. He's popular. It's what the fans want. Mr. Frank Lampard to come back. But I think he needs more experience as a manager, and it was too much too soon for him.
Yeah, interesting point there, Adam. I mean, that's a very valid point. But then, if you do say that, then you could also say, what about Mikel Arteta? What about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? And and we're gonna get to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his successes in our second hot topic. I think Frank Lampard. I think the main question is, will he get sacked, Adam? Will he get sacked?
It depends. Honestly, this may sound very indecisive, but I think that it depends because if you look, you just mentioned Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Mikel Arteta. They have had some seriously grey patches. Arsenal were close to getting relegated. Man United were 15th, I think, at the time we did our last podcast. That Man United have clawed their way to first place, although they do have a game in hand, and Arsenal are looking to be playing at least Europa League, if not Champions League next season. And so I think that if Chelsea can give Lampard time and trust, then yes, he can stay. But as we know, Abramovich is a demanding Russian billionaire, and he wants immediate results. And so I think it's just a club management that means I think he may not stay, unfortunately. What do you think?
It's an interesting one, and I think he's gonna have to turn around results pretty quickly. If this poor run continues. I think that action will have to be taken. But again, we can't say that right now it's a failure because a few months ago, I mean, we can't say a few months ago. 1 or 2 months ago, Chelsea were top of the league at some stages. Chelsea were top of the pile. They were winning games constantly, clean sheets every single time, consistent, not scrappy performances, solid, composed, very young players performing like they've been at Chelsea for 20 years. Very experienced performances, showing great game management, getting results, winning comfortably. And now we've had a little bit of a Chelsea are having a bit of a issue here, and I think that was down to a bit of arrogance. Went over to Everton thinking they're top of the league, best team in the Premier League. Oh, guys, we don't have to really make an effort here. Well, didn't make an effort, lost the game. And then we go over to Wolves. Well, first half, bit lame, not the best performance. And then second half, we go into the lead. Arrogance kicks back in. We let Wolves come back into the game. Let them have a few chances. Podence scores, late winner, obviously unlucky, but hey, you can't really do that. Concentration levels. We lose 2 games in a row. Then it's not arrogance isn't the problem, it's confidence. And then what happens next? We go to we host West Ham. We look very, very edgy. And for a certain period of game, there was a certain 20-minute period in that game where I was telling myself, I want to leave this room right now because it's really boring. And West Ham are actually dominating. For 20 minutes, we couldn't get hold of the ball in their half, which was embarrassing. Against any team, I don't care who it is. If it's Liverpool, you can't have 20 minutes where they just have the ball. I don't care who it is. Barcelona, Bayern Munich. Never. Never, never, never. And the important thing is we didn't concede. And then we go ahead and win the game 3-0. Flattered us, but we won the game 3-0. And then, arrogance again. Go to Arsenal. Give a bit of a mediocre performance. Arsenal. The teams that are doing terribly tend to show up against Chelsea. Kind of interesting. Chelsea.
Yeah.
The kingmakers of terrible teams. Well, it's an interesting one. Arsenal absolutely outclass us with 19-year-olds, which is a bit of a shame. And then we have Man City. It just gets worse and worse and worse. Misery compiler. And here we are now, and we're asking questions. How are you going to bounce back? Well, again, League 2, Morecambe. Yeah, I agree, and I think, when we have a League 2 match in the FA Cup, that's a great thing to have. I mean, that's I'm actually embarrassed to say that as a Chelsea fan, but thank goodness we were playing Morecambe. And I was worried that Morecambe were going to beat us because they're not doing too well as well in League 2. So yeah, I mean, I think Frank Lampard deserves time, and I think he can't take all the pressure. I think there are some players that are simply not performing up to standards of late, and I think Havertz and Werner were playing well even during our good period. And I think there needs to come a point where they get dropped. We need to say, hi, welcome to the Premier League. If you can't perform to the level that we need you to, if you can't match the physicality, the speed, the intensity, you can't play. We're sorry, but that's the way it is. Sometimes you gotta do that. I mean, sure, they're young, but we see that with Tammy Abraham. He's been out of the squad for a very long time, but when he comes on, Giroud, they're out of the squad for a long time. But when they come on, they make a difference. They do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I think that I'm seeing an uncanny resemblance of what happened with Mohamed Salah at Chelsea. He goes in, he's an exciting young prospect, in a definitely less challenging league. He's dominating the scene at a young age. He's exciting. People love watching him. He comes to the Premier League under a demanding manager. Yes, Mourinho is probably more demanding, and his style of play is very different to that of Frank Lampard, but still, it's a similar tale. He gets, I mean, I think that the transfer fee is the only thing that's different, but I think that it's the transfer fee that is making Lampard reluctant to drop them. When you pay so much for a player and you're forced to drop them, it's kind of also reminding me of Coutinho at Barcelona.
Yeah, wow. I mean,
transfer fee surely he's gonna establish himself as one of the world's best players. They refuse to drop him. Performances are poor. I think what they both need now is a loan deal. Frankly, I think if by the end of the season their form hasn't picked up, a loan deal is what's needed. To a big club, but they need a loan deal. The same way that Coutinho went and rediscovered his form at Bayern Munich, and even scored 2 goals and assisted 1 in 8 minutes against Barcelona in the famous 8-2 drubbing. But I think that's what's required right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting opinion, Adam, there, because, I think, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I definitely don't disagree, because I think the number one thing that Chelsea can't do, they can't do a De Bruyne, they cannot do a Salah, they cannot do Lukaku, they cannot sell them, absolutely, because they're gonna come, they'll be back, and they'll be as 10 times as good as we thought they could be, when we got them. Imagine what Chelsea could be if we didn't sell De Bruyne. Imagine what Chelsea could be if we didn't sell Salah, Lukaku. It's really incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and hey, I mean that's the reality. You have to have faith in your players. They're gonna make mistakes, but maybe they'll have a rough first season. Pulisic didn't start completely well, but then he picked up form. He got used to the Premier League. He had time to adjust, and then certainly hits a purple patch, and becomes one of Chelsea's best players. And I think in order for Pulisic to continue to thrive, which he has had the greatest of periods right now, because his striker isn't giving him enough. He's not being a backboard like Giroud would be, and he can't connect with them because that chemistry isn't arrived. So, but once that chemistry gets there between those players, I mean, this team hasn't had enough time to gel yet. I mean, we have to. This is a very new Chelsea team. We have to remember that as well. And, once these Chelsea players get to know each other a little bit better, learn, make mistakes with each other, I think they can definitely they can be 10 times as good as what we've seen of them in October and November. So, I think we'll conclude Frank Lampard for now. Quite the long discussion. Sorry if we were being a bit boring there, but very important discussion. And our final hot topic is on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and Man United, and are Man United title contenders, Adam?
I honestly, as a Liverpool fan, yes, they are. I have a slight inkling that they could drop in form at the end towards the last stages due to complacency, but they're currently playing like the best team in the Premier League. Frankly, Liverpool's recent performances since the 7-0 victory at Crystal Palace have not been up to par with a title-winning side. On the contrary, Man United's performances, they seem to just win every game. You remember Liverpool last season, they would just pull victories when you thought, it's going to be a 0-0, 1-1. Even we're starting to see that with Man United. Pogba scores an outrageous goal just in that game recently for a 1-0 victory. And you see it so much, even though many of them are penalties, there's controversy. I honestly think that Man Man United could win the league.
Wow, I never thought I'd say that since Sir Alex Ferguson left. It's an interesting opinion, Adam, there. Can Man United win the league? It's interesting because we can't have the same double standard, because when Chelsea were on top, when Spurs were on top, we were saying, the South is calling, the South is calling, the South is calling. And then that hype quickly faded away. And maybe it's the red side of Manchester that's calling. The red side of Manchester's calling, everybody. Get hyped. What we gotta remember is that Spurs have had the same kind of purple patch. Chelsea have had it. Man City are in the midst of that, I think, right now, with a slight uptick in form. And I think I said it with Everton. I said it with Aston Villa at the beginning of the season. You can have your moments, but at the end of the day, if you can't keep it consistent, you will not be top of the pile. That was the problem with Chelsea. That was the problem with Spurs, and if that's the problem at Man United, they won't be top of the league for very long.
Well, I mean, I think that's a completely legitimate opinion. I think just think about it. How many league leaders have we had so far?
So many. Too many.
We might miss a few, but we've had Everton,
Aston Villa.
Yeah, Aston Villa were up
Spurs,
there.
Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United now.
Yeah, so I don't know if I counted. So Aston Villa, Everton, Liverpool, Spurs, Manchester United, and Chelsea, 6. So whereas last season, from match day 2, Liverpool were the top of the league straight away. There was no discussion as to who was going to win. It gets to a point, I think, after about 2 months when you win straight victories, and even after international and Christmas breaks, the train keeps rolling and it keeps speeding through. I think that's when you know that you've got a special team and they're going to win the league.
Yeah, and I think the exception with Liverpool is that they were so remarkably consistent last year. Not quite the same, but I still think Liverpool, like we said in our predictions, and we're going to actually revise the predictions quite soon once everyone gets to 18 games. I still think Liverpool will win it at this point. And it's because of their consistency in results. Sure, they get the odd draw, the odd loss. I think last year, what really benefited them, even though they had some really poor form at that last game before lockdown and then going into lockdown, it wasn't great. There was a lot of draws. There was that famous 3-0 loss against Watford. And I think that was really and they also, we can't forget they lost 5-0 to Man City. But it was because of that incredible consistent form beforehand that allowed them to that compensated for those points dropped, and it didn't even break their stride, and it hardly affected the title race. So, and Man City could hardly even catch up to them. So that's the point that we're at with Liverpool again. It's just whether they can keep that consistency, and no team has had that same consistency as Liverpool. And it's whether Man United can, step right up. Next team to challenge Liverpool this year. Man United's next. Can they do it? Well, we can't doubt them. We can't have a double standard, because we were hyping up Spurs and Chelsea. But are they just another one of those pretenders? We'll find out very soon.
Well, I think on that note, we'll conclude a long due podcast. It was a longer one than normal, but it was necessary. The United Kingdom are back into lockdown and for the foreseeable future, so expect more podcasts in the next week and coming weeks as well. So yeah, I think on that note, don't forget to subscribe, like, turn on the post notification bell, share it with your friends, family, other people who like football, and yeah, goodbye from me, and goodbye from you, I presume.
Yeah, goodbye everyone, thank you for watching, bye.